lot of things have been kept deliberately vague about troll reproduction in Homestuck. Not just for the sake of the author's sanity, but also as an endless source of comedy. We know buckets play a role, we know 2 pairs of parents make material for 1 troll, and while this paints a decent enough picture, what intrigues me is the idea of how troll genetics even function, especially in a system like ectobiology. As a concept, ectobiology makes sense for human babies just fine. You have 2 separate pairs of parents, and 1 set of parents makes 2 kids. Or rather, 2 twins, as Rose would put it, a boy and a girl. Assumedly, this has something to do with chromosomes, where mixing and matching will always result in 1 Y chromosome and therefore 1 child with 2 X chromosomes. Or at least that's my take on it. When it comes to trolls, though, this becomes infinitely more confusing. Troll reproduction by itself isn't parental-child based. It would honestly be pretty simple if it was, but no. Rather, it's reliant on an entirely different creature as an egg producer in order for the species to repopulate. Genetic material is gathered en masse, mixed together, and from that slurry, the grub mother lays eggs. And because of that process, trolls don't have a concept of family, like, at all. Each troll is hatched individually and raised by a creature that decidedly isn't a troll. And while they have ancestors, they're less parental figures and more mythical figures that you might have a lot in common with, as Vriska puts it. Therefore, trolls have no concept of siblings, or cousins, or parents, or grandparents, just lone individuals raised by alien creatures trying to function in a caste system that was almost tailor-made for eugenics. And yet eugenics don't happen, at least not normally. The only real ethnic cleansing we're aware of that took place on Alternia was by the Grand Highblood, who eradicated an entire caste of trolls, Limebloods, and therefore prevented their genes from being present during the Grub Mother's brooding. A theory basically confirmed true by the extended Zodiac quiz that the Limeblood niche in the hemospectrum, so to speak, was eventually filled by the mutant Vantasses, and possibly others like them that we don't know the signs and names of. This leads me to believe that the whole reason why lower bloods haven't been entirely eradicated by the high bloods is purely because a lack of lower bloods quote-unquote weakens the entire gene pool, and results in more mutant trolls that have less abilities overall. This also leads me to believe that it was ultimately Dog's Crash who organized the mass killing in the first place, as Karkat and Kankri were both made outside the larger gene pool, just as all of our troll protagonists were. Therefore, the lack of Lion Bloods wouldn't actually cause the Vantasses to have mutant blood. Rather, the mass killing was organized to retroactively explain how someone like Kankri could exist at all, at least in the eyes of someone like the Dolorosa, who undoubtedly knew more about troll reproduction than I ever will, and would have been motivated to kill the young mutant as per troll customs, but if, say, an entire blood color niche was missing from the gene pool, she would understand the injustice that led to this grub's existence, and therefore spare it and let it live with her. All of that aside, I do want to talk about how the gene pool functions for normal trolls. We know that each troll has to supply 2 buckets of mixed genetic material. We also know that, per their social customs, the 2 trolls involved in helping fill the buckets are supposed to be 2 separate individuals. 2 concupiscent quadrants, 2 mating partners means 3 parent genes that mix to create the child genes. I think it more so functions as 4 parent genes, even if 2 of them are from the same set of parent genes, and this gives an equation that I think pretty decently shows how troll genes work in normal circumstances. We have 1 anchor parent, your ancestor, whose genes influence you the most out of everything, and 2 providers that essentially just mix things up a bit rather than acting as fully fledged ancestry. The troll reproductive system doesn't have risk of inbreeding, and therefore has no social customs around family, but they do have a risk of cloning, so to speak. If you have genetic material of only your parent and no secondary providers, once it all gets mixed into one slurry, that goop is going to be extremely saturated and unable to properly mix into the rest, possibly causing it to not be able to create an egg at all because it's harder for the grub mother to process, or something. At least that's what I think. Moreover, I think the grub mothers play a fascinating role in all of this, and in and of themselves. Even though they seem like common beasts, like all other Luci, the grub mothers seem to have a lot more agency than we give them credit for. Not only do they produce their own eggs, meaning the troll population relies on them without the grub mothers getting anything in return, like a weird fucking parasites, but Kanaya's Lucis is specifically a virgin grub mother. Yes, this is for Jesus reference reasons, but she specifically refuses to participate in brooding, and would have been killed for it if her and Kanaya weren't living so remotely away from the rest of society. This, to me, seems like a political move on her part, as the trolls she will birth will inevitably be killed by a brutal society they're hatched into, and opting to not lay those eggs is a threat to the system and a statement all on its own. It's why she let Kanaya have the Matri orb after she passed away, because she wants the trolls to keep living, but not in these conditions. Conditions that, frankly, could not be fucking worse. As much as I've talked about troll customs as a means of explaining their biology, it's also very clear that a lot of their cultural ideas are just steeped in classism and imperialism. The idea that trolls are inherently more violent than humans? Bullshit. The Bepharus trolls failed their session essentially because they weren't violent enough. The idea that dominant genes get preferential treatment during the breeding process? Also bullshit. It's more than implicitly eugenicist, because there's no such thing as dominant genes in a mixing mess like this. It's all lie perpetuated by the state in order to push the agenda that domination and subjugation is the only way to live. Okay, rant about troll society aside, let's get into the ectobiology side of things. From the past Karkat Wake Up minigame, we know the ordeal of mixing all these genes was highly stressful and traumatic for Karkat, but also we get to visually see their mixing tubes. We also see 12 little grubs that resemble the beta trolls, and only 12. This led people to believe that the beta trolls genes were used to create the alpha trolls genes, a la these showed up first and Karkat hasn't made the alpha trolls yet. I disagree with this reading, mostly because alpha always denotes an earlier version. So even if the sessions are alpha, beta, beta, alpha, the reason they're denoted as alpha and beta at all is reliant on who the paradox clones are and who the paradox offspring are. And if that doesn't satisfy you, we have no reason to believe these grubs aren't the alpha trolls. The trolls look extremely similar to the ancestors as is, but as grubs they might as well be indistinguishable. Or, Occam's razor, the artist decided to illustrate the process of Karkat making the grubs with the beta designs just because we didn't have the alpha trolls designs yet. Even if you disagree with me and think the betas are the paradox clones, that doesn't really matter for my reading. Just swap the alphas and the betas and you get the same system. The more important thing in the minigame anyway is looking at the physical location where this event took place. The tubes for the paradox sludge are set up way differently than the human ones, other than being symmetrical on both sides, probably splitting them between Durst and Prospect like he did the humans, and here's the kicker, there's twice as many large tubes as there are tiny squares for the child genes. This directly supports my theory about troll reproduction and genealogy, so let me explain. Let's say the three tubes in the front correspond to Cancri, Porum, and Latula's genes. In the back, we would have Rufio, Kurulus, and Aranaz. The three small squares in the front would therefore correspond to Karkat, Kanaya, and Terezi, and would consist of mainly the genes of their ancestor, with a tiny bit from two other parents mixed in. This would mean all of this material was used for just 3 trolls, and an additional system would have to be made to create the other 3 Prospedian trolls, with the large tubes now switching places. Rufio, Kurulus, and Aranet in the front, and the others in the back, and the produced genes belonging to Tavros, Gamzee, and Vriska. Repeat the same for the Dursites. Now, with that in mind, I also have a theory for whose genes mix to create who. This one's more speculative and vibes-based, I will admit, but I think it's fascinating nonetheless. And full credit to my sister who... Oh, okay, this is a really funny story, actually. Back when she was in high school and way more into Homestuck, she made this prototype theory that paired 2 alpha trolls to create 2 beta trolls a la human ectobiology, and while I didn't fully agree with it, it kind of held up in the vibes department. Flash forward a few years and I'm in college thinking about troll biology, as you do, and I ask her, hey, where's that chart you made in high school? And she looks at me like I'm insane, and I explain what I'm looking for, and she's like, I never made that, what the fuck are you talking about? And I tell her, no, I remember it, it was specifically in that red notebook of yours, on a piece of paper you ripped out from a class notebook, and you made portraits of the trolls and the humans in pairs to compare them to the parents. And she stares at me and blinks and is like, no, I did not fucking make that. So we look through her stuff and I point at the notebook and I open it myself and I'm like, okay, yes, here it is. And she stares at it in awe, having completely forgotten she made this, and she's like, how the fuck did you remember this and I didn't? And I'm like, Point is, her theory is the predecessor to my own and inspired like half the pairs I made. Speaking of which, let me explain that. Dividing the trolls based on their dream planet is step 1. Step 2 is creating 2 sets of pairs, looking approximately like this. Step 3 is lose your mind for a day thinking about nothing but troll genes and trying to find similarities that could be as much as a hair out of place to signal they're connected to a troll that isn't their immediate ancestor. Step 4 is this list. Now, even though I talked at length about how trolls don't have a concept of cousins or parents, I do think the offspring inherits something from each of their gene providers. As an example, I want to look at Aeron, whose genealogy I explained as Cronus, Mina, and Horus. Aeron has a lot in common with Cronus, that's something no one can deny, but the things that don't make him a carbon copy of Cronus are things that he, I believe, inherited from the other 2 pseudo-parents. From Mina, he inherited his violent tendencies and the need for control, and from Horus, he inherited a complete lack of social comprehension and the tendency to use that as a manipulation tactic, while Cronus still acts as his direct lineage, his anchor parent, that acts as a blueprint to be modified to create Aeron. I made a schematic for this, so let me run through the rest a little more quickly. Equi's got his overcompensating masculinity from Cronus and irritability from Mituna. Slugs has his lack of self-control from Damara and his broodiness from Horus. Aradia got her love and care for people from Mulin and psychic abilities from Mituna, or maybe just a higher risk for mental illness, either works. Nepeta got her rebellious spirit from Damata and cutthroat murder instincts from Mina, and Teferi has her excitedness from Mulin and her airheadedness from Cronus. Now for the Prospidians. Davros got his gamer skills from Latula and general chill vibes from Kurulas. Gamzee got his just be nice to everyone from Rufio and his rage as an emotion from Kankri. Karka got his nurturing instinct from Purim and his loudness from Kurulas. Kanaya got her meddling instinct both from Kankri and from Aranea. It's like twofold with her. Vriska has her sense of duty from Purim and deep insecurities from Latula. And lastly, Terezi got her scheming instinct from Aranea and also possibly her immunity to mind control and confidence in the face of strife from Rufio. If you disagree with who I cited as an influence on who, please let me know in the comments. This theory has been rotting my brain for entirely too long. I need to know what other people think about it. But also, I hope you had fun with this, especially because troll OCs are so popular. I don't want to be a killjoy and say, herder, if your troll OCs don't follow the gene structure, they're bad, or something like that. Exactly because this is also vague in the source material, I think it's fine to speculate. And it's also fine to not give a shit about the deeper world building and just want to make funny little horned guys. Even if I can't personally relate to that, since I made 2 more troll OCs just to fill in my roster to fit with this genealogy theory. You know, to each their own when it comes to the lore. All in all, thank you for watching, and thank you for indulging my bullshit, and shit, that was one hell of a mystery no one thought was a mystery and didn't even really need solving, but damn if it didn't just get solved anyway, huh? See you next time. So you're telling me I could have scored both of you cuties in some timeline? Yes? You both need to get the fuck away from me.